Recruiter Show. This is Donnie Gupton. Today I've got an amazing guest. I think I always have amazing guests, though, but I am a little bit biased. But this one's especially amazing. This is Brianna Rooney is joining me today. And for those of you that don't know Brianna, it's time to get into her world. So she is known as the Millionaire Recruiter. She is the CEO of Thriversity, which is, they're trying to really change the world of staffing through training and learning and development. And then she's also the CEO of Talent Perch, which is your on-demand strategic recruiting solutions for all your hiring needs. And she's also exited Techies a couple years ago. So she's already grown, scaled, and then sold a recruiting agency. And make sure you follow her on YouTube, as she has 32,000 subscribers and dropping new videos all the time. So Brianna, thank you for being here with me today.
Thanks, honey. I love the intro. Don't get tired of
it. And for those of you that are listening with us live, if you can go in and give us some likes, let us know that you can hear us. And then just a reminder, this podcast is on all the major channels, Spotify, iTunes, and as well as my YouTube channel. So make sure you check us out there. Today, we're going to be talking about mindset. I think it's so important right now. We're going to be talking about the mindset of elite billers and the millionaire kind of mindset. But I think in general, Brianna, the market is just interesting right now, right? And I think this is, we both align that right now, the recruiters that have the strongest mindset are really going to be able to win, given kind of the uncertainty that we're seeing across all these markets. So again, thank you for being here with me today. Just want to dive in, can you just give a brief background beyond what I've shared? Maybe highlight some other things in terms of your experience in recruiting and growing your own businesses.
Yeah, thanks, Donnie. Love being here. I know we've connected a few times on our different podcasts.
Yeah.
I'm eating up your material, so thanks for that. So I started recruiting when I was like 21, 22-ish, and loved it, fell in love with it. Was a tech recruiter. And at the moment, I didn't even know what recruiting was. And so like I had to have that thing. So it was just like, oh, tech recruiting, of course. Like that's the natural thing I'll do because that's the only thing I know about. And ended up starting my own business at 24, which is Techies, which we were talking about. And I just realized that there was no training, there was no path. It was just like, here it is. You're just going to sit down in an agency. You're going to work really hard. You're going to get up at 6 a.m. You're going to leave at 7, and you're just going to grind. And I just kind of thought that there was a better way to do that. There was a more efficient way to do that, which is why I brought Techies into play. And so, yeah, I had Techies, which also just focused in tech recruiting. It's what I call sexy tech, and grew that. I've gone anywhere from, 4 people to up to, I think the biggest was maybe about 16, 17. I definitely think it gets a little squirrely when you go bigger than that as an agency. And then I was very fortunate to have an exit, actually, which is crazy. It's going to be in 3 days. It will be 2 years.
Wow. Congrats.
Which is wild. I will say, and I know that this isn't like the topic, but maybe we want to do a topic about like, how do you prepare for an exit? Because the way I got my mindset straight and really focused on it was actually after I crumbled. And I'm really honest that I crumbled after the sale. So I wasn't ready for that level of success, ready for my team to have left, to have closed the doors. And, it was kind of an interesting thing, but so here I am with Talent Perch Diversity. We got some new brands, but recruiting's interesting. It's never boring. So anyone out there that's in recruiting, put in the comments, like, what are you struggling with? Put some wins, please. Let's hear some wins. Cause it's hard.
Yep. Matt, thank you for being here. Hope you guys are doing good. Billing over $1 million is obviously a massive, it's a massive feat, right? Share your journey, if you would, on like hitting that milestone and, how did it feel once you got there?
Yeah. So I think that I went into this and just like wanted to make the most money that I could. I wanted to prove that you didn't have to go to school. You didn't need a really fancy degree to be super successful. And so that was like my main focus. Like, I don't think I was ever like, I got to hit $1 million. It was more of a like, I got to do really well. And every single year I want to make more. And so then you have that balance between clients and candidates. And for me, I've always been super, super focused on being the candidate recruiter. and I know people fight this. Trust me, internally, I fought this with my team because clients pay your bills, candidates do not. But I really think that if you do think of it as candidates pay your bills, I think that's where the referrals come from. That's where your trends come from. It's where your market knowledge comes from, is from the candidates, because your relationships with them are gold. So I think as I was building that and I had that thought process, I think business came more organically for me. And so the way that I would say that when I hit $1 million, like, besides freaking out, right, and spending more money, because everybody spends more when they make more.
Yep.
That's a whole other subject. But yeah, it was really surreal. It was super exciting. My agency was always focused on how many deals we made, how many offers we had, and we had it on our whiteboards because we were always in office. And so in office, we'd put up fun names and we'd hit the gong. Like, we still do all those fun things. So yeah, it was just super surreal. And I kept track. I mean, I had employees that were $1 million billers as well.
Wow.
So that's its own separate, really cool thing. And it kind of actually gives me the chills, gives me the money chills, because it was almost, and I'm trying to think back, but I almost feel like that having $1 million billers underneath your roof felt better than me hitting $1 million, which is so crazy to say. And it took me a long time to get there. But yeah, having employees making that much money, watching them buy houses, watching them do stuff like that, that was the cool stuff.
You're actually seeing, okay, you've done it. Now you're seeing your impact on other people, giving them their, showing them the way, and then they're doing it too. Yeah. I mean, I get to coach people, and I understand that selfishly. It's one of the best rewards is when you see, whether it's monetary or whatever it is, just the upskill, up level, somebody changing their life is, really awesome. Elena, thank you for being here. Sharik, thank you for being here as well. Accounting is definitely a good niche if you can find the talent. And welcome to recruiting, Elena. So let's talk specifically about the mindset. What would you say distinguishes the mindset of like a true elite recruiter versus, kind of a, traditional biller, if you will?
Yeah, I think a lot of people think about, oh, you just have to have resilience. And by the way, you do. It's rough. Like, there's the highs and lows and all of those things. But I actually think it's more about how do you frame yourself on being really intentional, but having talking really positive talk to yourself.
Right.
Because I talk about this a lot. Like, I would say more often than not, people probably say really awful things to them that they would never say to another human being in a trillion years,
Right.
And it's like, why do we do that? And so I think in order to get your mindset straight, you have to start with yourself, and you have to start with not that you deserve this, but you've worked for it. And also I had to reframe my mind that I know what I want. I want to be rich, filthy rich. And I also know that the universe, money loves me. I'm a money magnet. All of those affirmations and, manifesting and stuff, really, really, really matter. And I think once you start realizing that you matter and spending time with yourself matters, then you start to see things really move.
Right. Now, how do you, because it's kind of like, it's like that woo-woo, like, okay, think about it, Brianna, think about, you got all these nice manifestation, which I'm a full believer in, and I know it works. But for those that might be on the fringe with that, like, how do I take it from just being kind of a set of air that's coming out of my mouth versus like a conviction that I'm believing in, right?
Yeah. So it is over and over and over again until you do believe it. It's in the mirror, it's videoing it. And trust me, this stuff sounds very silly. I get it. I was there. I thought it was silly, but there's lots of things that show that it takes at least 30 days to build a habit. Right. So this is not something that you're going to believe tomorrow. It's not something you believe in 2 weeks. It's every single day. And it becomes like brushing your teeth. Right. For sure. Everyone brushes their teeth when they wake up, I would assume. But it's just like that. It's almost like I dare you, I dare you. And I do think probably sometimes it's going to take longer than 30 days, depending on where you at and you are in your journey. Right. Because I think some people are ready and some people are not. So it might take 60 days, but give yourself, I dare you guys, give yourself 45 days. 45 days, You were going to say these things to yourself 20 times a day. You will write them down. So I don't know about you, but I got the way I tested this theory out is the universe, the manifesting. I did a 45-day journaling. And so I wrote down what I wanted and what I decided the universe was going to give me. I wrote it down 3 times in the morning, 6 times in the afternoon, and 9 times before I went to bed.
That's a habit.
That is a habit. Trust
Yep.
me. And like that. But when you think about it, it actually doesn't take that long. That whole journaling thing probably took 15 minutes of my time for the entire day.
Right.
So it's like, I'm pretty sure. So I had to then commit to myself, do I feel like I'm worth 15 minutes?
Right.
I sure hope so.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think that's a great way to put it, is like, we always put these things on the back burner. Like, it's almost like self-care, right? It's like, hey, I'm going to put my, I'm just going to wake up and let my brain decide whatever direction that's going to go. Right.
Yeah.
And I think that's dangerous versus like, hey, I'm going to proactively kind of tune my brain in the direction I want it to go, knowing that, we internally usually beat ourselves up pretty dang good.
I started catching myself. So like I would actually have like some 15 minutes like on my calendar and stuff like that, or I'd have like, hey, go for a walk, like, just to clear your brain, right? Because you can only work so hard for so long. And so I found myself that if anyone wanted to have a quick call with me, or if it was a client or something, if it was something to do with money, for sure, I would definitely get rid of those 15 minutes that I gave myself. Like that's the stuff that I would do. And it was so detrimental to really, I think the success and how much money I made. So and then that's the thing. It's like, you have to correlate it to dollars.
Right.
And that's how I was like, oh, wait a minute. Like, I'm not making as much as I want to this month, or as I wanted to this last quarter. Like, let's change something, because whatever I was doing was not working.
Right. Now, because I think this is where it's really cool, kind of being in this self-development space and seeing like where everybody's going. And there's one path, which is kind of like these ultra masculine dudes out there where it's like, hey, if you're not working 24/7, you're a piece of shit, and all these things, right? And it's like, okay, but then on the flip side, it's like, okay, well, you're not just sitting there manifesting and doing nothing to create this result. So like, how have you found, because I just don't really, for me, and maybe it's just because of my background and my past, going through so much masculine football training, like I just don't resonate with like the, hey, if I'm not working 24 hours a day, then I'm somehow inadequate. But I also know that, again, like, it's not just about, oh, here's these nice thoughts, the world's going to come for me. So how would you articulate this balance between mindfulness and manifestation and energy, and then got to do the work?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like, I think a lot of times people come to recruiting because they think it's the fastest way to make money with little effort.
Right.
That is not true. First of all, you can make money very, very quick in this industry. That is true. Only if you are here to put in the work. Now, I will say, like, I don't start at 6 a.m. and 7 p.m. anymore. So something interesting that happened to me, and I think probably the mindfulness happened at about the same time, was when I had my first child. So he's 9 now. So it has been a long journey for me, but I could not find daycare for him for Fridays. So when I got back to work, I have this little baby, right? And for sure Fridays, like, I found this great woman, but Fridays were a non-starter. And I was like, oh my God, I have to take off Fridays every Friday. I better figure out how I can still do my full-time job and the whole like day missing, right? So I was freaking out, right? And that was also when I got anxiety for the first time, was when I was pregnant. So that's why my mindfulness journey started then.
Right.
And so all of a sudden, that year that I lost a full day of work for 52 weeks was my highest grossing year I've ever. Because I was up against, how am I going to be super, super, super efficient? And and so I developed something that I like to say, I make money off of every single click, every interaction, I make money. And I focus on not just today's money, but tomorrow's money, next year's money, and I think that that's really important, is we're not constantly doing the shiny penny thing, which, by the way, love shiny pennies. And I still do that. I still go squirrel. But also thinking like, hey, this didn't work out. Like when I didn't get an offer accepted, I used to be like, oh God, that sucks. Like, we work for free, right? Like, so I was doing contingency. I still do contingency. I work for free. That sucks. Well, no, now I realize on how many different ways I can make money off of that
Right.
interaction. So I'm never getting on the phone. I'm never shooting an email that I don't have the intention of making money from. And again, maybe not today, but in a few months.
At some point in time. Yeah.
Yeah, some point in time.
Yep. No, I think that's a good distinction of working smarter, obviously, than harder. And it's interesting because I've had a similar thing where, I was always kind of like had my foot on my throat as soon as I woke up, right? And it was like, hey, can't do anything besides work and this, that, and the other. And it was like, as soon as I kind of just reframed that, and actually I do work that's my first part when I wake up in the mornings. I work because that's when I'm fresh. But then I also, then right after that, I actually take, some time for care, working out, physical, emotional, spiritual health. And, got out of this whole, like, hey, I need to grind all day long. And ever since I've made that little shift, more's come to me, so it's very interesting. That's been my experience of it. And there's a lot of people out there right now, again, that's like, oh, well, forget your morning routine. You don't need a morning routine. You don't need a morning habit. And I would say with that is, you need one. You just need to make it personal to you. Don't take Donnie's morning habit. Don't take Brianna's morning habit. What one works for you? What do you think about that?
150%. So when I first started talking about manifesting, right? I have a coach. And by the way, I think coaching's amazing. So please do that. That was a game changer for me. But again, that's a personal thing. So she was like, you really need to start manifesting. You need to have like those mindful moments. Like you need to meditate. And I was like, meditate? Do you see this energy over here? I'm gonna freak out. Like I can't sit there. I can't envision myself doing these, it's crazy. So for me, she was like, look, you don't have to sit there. You don't have to do this little thing. She's like, this is your journey. So now I learned that I can meditate while I work out.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm totally lost and I'm having it and it's super, super powerful. So so I love everyone's journey is different. Like, I think there's lots of different things you could do, but it doesn't work for you. It literally is not going to work. Like same with affirmations. Like don't take my affirmation, take the one that works for you because it's not going to resonate with you. So you have to think of like, okay, what is something that I want and I believe I can achieve?
Mm-hmm.
Because until you believe it, again, like you can do the fake till you make it. You can say it over and over again. You can do those things, but you do have to believe it that's true. So no, I love it. I think what's interesting too is I love that you bring up like this crazy hustle, thing. Oh God, and I'm thinking of a few people right now that like, and I'm thinking like, does your wife like you? Does your husband like you? Like, there's no way. Like, it's intense. Like, calm down. I think the same thing. It's like you can absolutely have work-life balance and still be a hustler. Like they're not like two different things, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that it's like thinking to yourself, how great can I be for how long? So for me, when I'm in like my sourcing groove or even biz dev, because it's technically one and the same, it's just you're talking to different people, right?
Right.
So for me, 45 minutes. I got 45 really amazing minutes where I am creative, I am jamming, I'm either doing videos or I'm sending out really cool stuff. Like I'm paying attention, my eyes are fully open, and then I got to stop and chill for a little bit.
Right.
Now I can do that 3 times a day and still feel like I'm nailing it. But I think that people like, okay, I'll give you an example. Some of the most dedicated people who were the first ones in the office and the last ones to leave were my lowest performers.
Right.
But the people that just hit it, quit it, like went hard, and didn't, and probably worked half the time of this person, outgross them probably 3 times.
Right.
So it's not about the hours that you put in. It's about the constant focus and how creative can you be for how long. I think that's what's really important because recruiting, like if you are literally going from page 1 to page 40 when you're sourcing, not doing the job, right? You are literally just punching it in. Like you're punching in like, hey, here's my time clock, It's like, no, that doesn't work.
Yeah, you're checking the box. Got this done.
Yep. There's no box to check. Like that's what's crazy. And I think that with success and stuff like that, there's no box you check. Like, it's like, but here's the bottom line. You don't take care of yourself, you can't take care of anybody else.
Right. Yeah. Now, it was a big realization for me a couple of years back is, when I'm playing at my highest performance and everybody else benefits from it. And I think sometimes we feel selfish by putting ourselves first, right? But hey, at the end of the day, that's everybody else benefits when we're taking care of ourselves first. I think it's actually
Yeah.
one of the worst things about society, which is like, hey, it's not about being selfish, but it's about prioritizing me. If I'm not prioritizing me, then I can't be the leader for my family that I want to be, leader for my business that I want to be, leader for my industry that I want to be.
110%. And you know what's
Yeah.
crazy is, so I'm doing this webinar on like negotiation, but it's essentially how do we reframe technically negative words that are
Yep.
actually really positive, and selfish is one of them.
Hmm.
Aggressive is
Yep.
another, especially for women. It's like, oh no, we're assertive. We can't be aggressive because that's a little crazy, you
Right.
know. But like, yeah, like this, I can't believe selfish is a bad word, and
Yeah.
but we're taught that selfish is. And that's
Yeah.
crazy. We need to reframe it. But just like being money motivated, that's also a negative in a lot of people's eyes. You know,
Hmm.
like I love, I mean, just the title, think big Bill Biller, sorry, Bill Bigger.
Yep.
Just that title and talking about our billings, talking about our wins, talking about our salaries, like we have to do that.
Yeah.
You know, and it's not like I don't think we should look at it as we're comparing each other. This is just like, this is what worked for me. It can work for you too.
Yeah, well, and I think this actually is a great thing. I was trying to figure out how I could transition it in. You just did this perfectly for me, which is, we're talking about big numbers and big things, but I think one of the things that I've landed on, which is right in line for you, is like I'm not trying to grow a $10 million business. My ego is not attached. I'm actually much more into building a business that works for me, works for my lifestyle, and I think that that's something that people need to give themselves permission to. It may not be $1 million. It may not be $10 million. It might be, hey, I want to bill 500K so that I can do this, that, and the other with my family. I think that the clarity, like you said early on, is important. But I think it's also, I think there's sometimes, at least I felt this was like the ego and then society and all these other things of like, oh, well, I have to do that in order to be successful. And actually now it's like, now that I've taken the pressure off, I continue to make more money as a result of that.
Mhm.
But I'm enjoying the process. I'm enjoying the journey. I'm not under, under my own, foot on my own throat, so to speak. So what do you think about that? What do you think about, hey, just picking what matters most for you and cutting out the noise from the external, so to speak?
Yeah, for sure. So anytime that either I'm coaching someone or someone wants to come into the program where I help them start their own agency, the very first question I ask them is, how much do you want to make?
Yeah.
That's it. Like, how much do you want to make? Because now I
Mhm.
can tell you how we can get there, because you have to work backwards. Like,
Right.
we have to have our mega goal, and then now we have micro goals to go there, right? But like, if you don't know what you want, then we can't go there, you
Right.
know?
Right. You have to reverse engineer it. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. And then what's interesting too is that whenever I talk to a lot of agency owners, they're like, I got to get employees. Like that's their goal. So
Right.
and it's like, let's pause for a second. Like, why do you want employees?
Hmm.
You have too much business? Could you work a little bit differently? Do you now know, so it's like we have to like keep going. Like, what is this romanticizing
Yeah.
of having employees? And
Right.
it also, it might be attached to the ego.
Yeah.
So like, let's think about that.
Hmm.
And now on the opposite side, and I have kind of a different journey here, is that I was really insecure about saying that I was a CEO.
Right.
Like, if anyone called, because like, I also developed really strong relationships with all of my employees, also being so young, we're all same age, stuff like that. There wasn't a lot of separation. And so like my best friend was also my employee.
Right.
And so it's like she's introducing me to her family as her boss and CEO, and I feel myself shrink like mentally and like be super insecure. And so I had to actually work on me on those words.
Right.
And I had
Right.
to realize, oh wow, what triggers me. And then once I got over that, which took me a long time, and then again, like, because I was blocking my ability to make a certain amount of money.
Right.
Like, whenever you have blockers, it's like we got to fight through that and push forward, because you'd be surprised what actually blocks you from making money. There's
Right.
lots of fear of success too.
Yeah. What are some of the biggest challenges that you faced as a recruiter, and how do you think your mindset has helped you overcome,
Hmm.
some of that?
Asking for recommendations and referrals.
Ooh, I love it. I love it.
And if your mindset is not strong, then you are constantly like, your confidence level is teeny. Like, I for a really long time was like, I don't need referrals, I don't need recommendations. I'm just going to let my work speak for itself, and they're just going to naturally do that. It's all going to happen like that.
Right.
And then you realize, like, actually, no, people talk about a negative experience more than they talk about a positive experience.
Right. Yep.
Um, and then I actually, so I was like, okay, Brand, this is silly. This is ridiculous now. You need to go ask for recommendations. Why? And then also, if, like, for example, I did a really great job with a candidate, but they didn't get an offer or they didn't accept my offer, I was like, oh, for sure, because I didn't have the result, that we're constantly being judged by. I can't
Right.
ask for a recommendation. Like, no way. I
Yeah.
had to get the result before I asked. So, like, again, I had to keep fighting mindset wise. Like, I'm good enough. I do great work. I show up, I give it my all those things you have to keep,
Right.
telling yourself, and then finally realize that you're nuts. Like, I did a lot of great things and I had to, and this is why I started my growth and success journal.
Right.
So if you guys do not have a growth and success journal, I definitely recommend doing that. And what I do now is I thought of, like, I go back to my, like, what I want to achieve, like, every year, and I have every single column. So I have work, I have health, I have kids, I have family, I have relationship. And so those are all the things that I have certain goals in, right?
Right.
So on this growth and success journal, those are also my categories on there. So anytime I have even little wins, even if it's just learning moments, or I overcame this, or I did something that made me uncomfortable, I'm putting all that stuff in there so I can look back and be like, actually, I've really grown. Because in recruiting, it's very difficult mindset wise to
Mm-hmm.
constantly be judged by results when
Yeah.
actually we're doing a lot of really great things.
Yep. Yep.
As a coach, how do you, do you feel your wins are based on your clients' wins? Like, how do you handle that?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I think for me, it's, I really encourage my clients and for myself is to stay focused on the process, right? For me, I have, I try to show up and focus on my energy every day, what I can bring to the table, but I have no control. I don't know how they're going to take and consume and implement my material. I don't, I'm only really solving one part of a recruiting agency problem with marketing and some business development stuff. And so I can't, I can't be attached to their outcome. All I can do is be attached to my energy that I bring to them across that. And because I work with people in all different phases, but one of the things I do try to pride myself on is seeing things in people before they see them. And I actually posted about that yesterday. And I think this is one of my gifts. And one of the things I really love about coaching is that I can see somebody's potential in themselves before they believe it in themselves. And then I try to drive and feed that, for them. And then a lot of times just like, hey, and this is one of the things that I actually do with my goal setting is I will do, for example, hey, I want to get 15 clients by the end, and I do my goals in 90-day rocks.
Oh,
Right?
90 days. Okay.
90 days. I think the years move too fast
Yeah.
I've never stayed motivated on annual goals. So I just do 90 days. I do quarterly. So I'll do new goals this week for the quarter. It's what I do in my round table group. I have a high performance group where we're doing these types of things together. And one of the things we do is we'll set the intention of a goal. So it's like, hey, I want to get 15 clients by December 31st. And then I attach that to who I need to be. So who do I need to be? How do I need to show up to achieve said goal? And that actually gets me focused on the process and not on the outcome. Because, and this is, I mean, we can go deep into this one here, Brianna, but with my own life, it's like I feel like all the suffering, all the disappointment that I have in my life comes when I don't hit an ideal. Right. And so, and then if you really think about it, it's like, well, how often are we hitting our ideals? So this isn't a way of like, hey, I'm going to back out of not hitting my goal, but it's like, I want to stretch myself. And if I don't hit 15, I can go back and say, hey, Donnie, you were still disciplined. You were still motivated. You still showed up every single day. Boom, there's a win. Because I think this is kind of going back into what we were talking about. The little training I saw last week is like, if we're always kind of judging off of what we're missing on, like our minds are already naturally kind of there to judge and beat us up. Right. Yeah. So if I can just stay locked into like, hey, here's how I'm winning. And this is just how my activity is going. It works for me. It works for my clients. And so thank you for interviewing me on my podcast. But yeah, that's kind of how I do it.
Yeah, no, I love that. I'm like, I'm sure you know what I'm talking about here when it comes to results, even though you're not a recruiter, yourself, we're still like thinking like, how are we judging ourselves? you
Yeah.
know, and that's the trouble with the mindset
Yeah.
of like, am I enough? Is someone doing better than me? Um,
Right.
is someone more aggressive than me? Who's closing more deals? Like what industry is better than tech? Like
Yeah.
just stuff like that. Like that happens all the time.
Yep. Well, and I think it's so important to put your blinders on. And it goes back into what I was saying earlier. You gotta craft what your own ideal day looks like, what your own vision of success looks like, And then yeah, I mean, I think it doesn't matter. Like for me in coaching, I've got my ups and downs, right? For me coaching my clients, in the recruiting, we have our ups and downs. And yeah, how do we stay consistent and motivated when, that dip happens? And I think it's just a matter of, again, controlling what I can control is what I'm focused on, right? That's where most of my energy goes, because every time I look at my ideals, that's where the frustration comes in. So, yeah, excellent. Thank you for asking me that. What drives you? I mean, what is your motivation? I know you mentioned the family and stuff, but like, what's the motivator here to keep growing? I mean, you built one, you sold one, you're building another one. I mean, why are we flying still?
Yeah, actually, so it does change. And so I definitely encourage everyone to like have like probably every 90 days, actually, hey, what does success mean to me?
Yeah.
Exactly why am I doing this? And yeah, like kids and time, you cannot get time back, right? So like that's
Hmm.
definitely where I've been. But I will tell you where I am today. What motivates me is proving to myself that I can do it again and that it
Right.
wasn't a fluke. It wasn't a fluke. I didn't just get lucky. I didn't, and I know that 12 years you don't get lucky, right? I mean, like it's not like I got lucky every day for 12
Right.
years, right? But your mind definitely goes there because it's like, hey, was it maybe the employees I had? Well, Brianna, you trained those employees,
Right.
so you start kind of getting into this, can you do it again? Hey, can I do it in a down market? Yes, I can. So that's what motivates me every single day is
Right.
that it's crowded, it's busy, we've got goldfish, for biz dev, right?
Yeah.
So it's not a fluke. We can do it, we can shift, I can pivot. And this is going to sound kind of weird because I just told you don't compare yourself to people, but I will say this. So my old boss and the one I've only had, the one that I
Mhm.
hired me for the first time, I remember thinking like I never wanted to be like him in the way that he didn't think things changed. Like he would come in and be like, well, in my day when I was going through a Rolodex and I was, what I mean? And and we laughed at him. And by the way, we have a great relationship, but it was just like,
Right.
it was like, man, you gotta like this is not like in the good old days, and I think
Right.
I could probably pick on you. Like, do you still talk about football? The good old
Yeah.
football days, like, when I did this and I did that, like I never want to do that. I don't want to age myself out of something, or out of a, I don't know. I think of TikTok for, and I'm not on TikTok
Yeah.
at all. And I'm just like, oh God, can't do that. Right. Like I'm not there yet, but I also don't want to sound like this crotchety old lady, that's not, I'm
Yeah.
not done. You know what I mean? Like I have more to give, I have more to do,
Right.
and I have more to innovate. And I think that's what's really exciting. And that's what drives me.
Right. Kind of following up on that. So how do you ensure, you mentioned you've got coaching, but how do you ensure you're always learning and staying ahead of the curve in
Oh,
this industry? Because it's obviously like a lightning bolt change is going on right now.
yeah.
So what are your tips on that?
So in addition to my growth and journaling and stuff like that I give myself 15 minutes for, I read. So I sign up for all of the newsletters that I deem puts out good stuff. So, but I read not only just recruiting newsletters, but I read my industry newsletters. So,
Yeah.
Morning Brew, like the tech and stuff like that. So I know exactly what's going on in my tech space. I know what's going on in the recruiting space. And then I have a couple of who I deem do things really well. And so I kind of just like follow them and I'll chat with them every now and again, or I'll just like look on their LinkedIn to see what's going on, and I definitely, I love reading and listening to podcasts and stuff like that because
Yeah.
everybody has something really great. And so it's like, why would we not consume that? And for a long time too, I used to think like, oh God, I don't have time for that. Like I got to get to work.
Right.
I like me reading is not making money. And that is not the case. You stay in on
Right.
trends and what people are doing. And, again, taking it with a grain of salt, because I think what people get in trouble with is they tend to follow, it's
Yeah.
like, no, again, goes back to you make what works for you, so like, for
Yeah.
example, like in my biz dev, I love doing video. video is my jam. Like if for me, like I can get out my message really quickly, they can see my personality. And I think people want to work with who they like. So it's like, might as well just throw it out there, you know? So I do Loom videos. But that doesn't work for everybody, you know, because it scares them. It gives them anxiety. It's like all of these things. Oh, now this 1 minute video took you 10 minutes when you could have already gotten out, you know, maybe a voice message or maybe a quick email or, you know, whatever it is. So yeah, just don't follow, but pay attention.
Right. For those of you that listen with us live, if you can go ahead and tap that like button, that love button, or that little insight button, we would appreciate if you're finding value out of Brianna. I know I am. Got a couple questions in here, and if you have any other questions, if you want to dig deeper, please drop them in the chat and I'll get to them. But one goes back into your journaling question, which Katie, she shared with you that you need to make these affirmations your own. But she was wondering, how would you phrase that in your journal? Can you give an example of how you kind of write up an affirmation?
I sure can. Okay, so I started this, and I'll just give you a couple because I did definitely do like day one, day whatever. This was actually my manifesting journal. So my growth and success journal is a little bit different. With my growth and success journal, I put the date because I like to know when I won, right? Put the date. I put what the category is, you know, whether it's work or kids or whatever, right? And then I'll just totally say what happens and why I'm proud of myself. So that's my growth and success journal. Manifesting its own separate beast. Okay. So, and this is from a little while back, but I would say I need, I want, I will have. So that was my thought process. So my first one was I'll build revenue for talent, purchase, and Thriversity. I'll get back my $1.2 million investment into that. Like, so I kind of went like really nitty gritty, which wasn't working for me. So very quickly after a week, I very much changed. So then I put, I'll build revenue for all of my brands. I'll see all my brands soar, you know, so then, you know, a few weeks later, this is fun. See, all brands will be profitable. I will focus, I will win. I will focus, I will win. And the reason why that came in is because when you do a lot of things, you're focused there, you cannot win without focus, right? I was noticing I was spreading myself way too thin. Same with recruiting. We talk about you need to pick a niche, right? And sometimes your niche picks you. So like, let it happen. But if you're going to keep fighting and not having a direct focus, then you get, you know, all over the place, right? And then, you know, when I sold, I felt like I lost myself a little bit. So in the next chapters here, I put, I'll get Brianna back. I'll get Brianna back. I am, you know, and then let me just, I'll flash forward here. I trust myself. I will not fail. I will make millions. I trust myself. I will not fail. I will make millions. So then that's what ended up speaking to me more. And then it got like super simple, right? It's 2 sentences. And then sometimes if I am like, if I'm doing a big webinar or I'm doing something that's out of my comfort zone, which by the way, I really suggest you guys do that as often as you can because you grow. But if ever I'm like too far out of my comfort zone, like I feel myself journaling, like you'll do great. You're going to kill it. You'll do great. You're going to kill it. People love listening to you, you know, stuff like that. And I'll keep going until my hand stops. So one time I actually had the whole entire page, which is crazy. And you could tell like, so I look back on it and you could tell like, wow, I was having a day, you know, and that's okay. That's a good idea.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I think the other thing, and you're not saying it this way, but it's kind of the way I look at it is like, we go through different seasons in life. And sometimes I'm going to have to hear a different message for myself in September than October. Right. I might be dealing with different limiting beliefs at different stages of my life and career and just pivoting and listening to what's showing up. And then what, you know, it sounds like how you're kind of journaling it out.
Yeah. So like I took, I mean, that some of that's like from like right after I sold, you know, it's like, so that's this journal. And, you know, so it's like now I'm on this, it's been a 2-year journey. And so it's very different, you know, but yeah.
Yeah, totally. Nas asked if, what do you do to get more business? What's your quick tip on that one there, Brianna?
Yeah, so for me, it is videoing, so to kind of answer that. But I will say I've gotten more into the habit of once I ask like, hey, what's going on with you? Like, what's the trouble with hiring this year? Like, is it XYZ? Almost doing like a quick little what's it called? Why can't I think of the word? poll, like a quick little poll.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, like just a quick little poll, like, hey, like what's going on? Like what are your troubles? What are you seeing? And then if I see an opportunity for them, then I just get into it. I'm like, hey, let's catch up for like 5-15 minutes tops, and like let's just go through this and see like how I can maybe help you out, or
Right.
what I've been doing recently that's working really, really well is any like VP of engineering, CTO, so who I deem my decision makers, even like head of recruiting, I'll put in my in-mail or email overdue to catch up. And I'll be like, hey, how's life at whatever company they're at? Like, hey, how's life at Google? It's been so long since we've caught up. Do you have time this week or next? Like, what time or day work for you? Just getting them on the phone and having more conversations is what's really been working. And again, stop focusing on today, focusing on like, this is going to help me eventually. And then I'm also seeing how the market's doing. So like I talked to a VP of engineering yesterday, nothing as far as money came from it, but we got to catch up. It's been a while. I know what he's doing. I know like when he's going to hire again, and I know what his trouble has been, but it was just like super casual, there's no pressure, anything like that. And so that for biz dev, I think has been doing really, really well, because then they're like, oh wait, actually, I think I know someone that's trying to hire. Oh really? Yeah, that's great. Hey, like let me know. But like I think what my focus on is I'm their first call.
Right. I want to be the only choice.
Yeah. I am the only choice. Like you call me first.
Yep.
And if we need help, we call in someone else. You know what I mean?
Love it.
Yeah.
Going back into the mindset, since you've had the opportunity to, help others, as an, employee or a team member of yours, and then also through some coaching, sometimes we don't know what we don't know. What is one of the kind of critical mindset beliefs or mistakes or habits that you see people make that they may not be aware that they're doing?
I would say the relationship with failure. So I've learned really early on, I hug it. I hug that thing. I like it. It's my fastest way to learn. Like I look at it like this. Either you can go to a class, you go on Udemy or wherever, you can go, or you can just start trying things, you can start doing. And so I realized that I would say the number one mistake is that people overthink. People overthink because they're, at the end of the day, they're scared to fail. They're scared of like, what's that going to look like? How am I going to handle that? And I couldn't believe how many times that's the case. And so, so I would say that is number one. And shockingly, I would say number two is people are fearing success. And I don't think that
gets like two different paradigms. It's almost way out. Yeah.
That like does not get talked about enough. Like you have to like dig to be like, hey, what are you really like scared of? And it goes back to, how we were always told to not talk about money. We were always told not to be motivated, like, ew, that's not good. And so I think that we're still having trouble there. I think it will be interesting though, to see like the younger generation come in.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like they probably won't struggle with that, like as much as I think millennials do. And older. And so, people have been struggling, like, hey, what are people going to think? Like, should I talk about money? Like, is it okay to want money? Is it okay to, be a millionaire recruiter? Like, is that okay? Like, I remember when I first started my channel, because it was one of my employees. I think Ben, you've talked to Ben. It was one of my employees at the time who came up with it. Like, I wasn't the one that came up with it. He was like, you got to teach people. No one's teaching recruiting right now. Like, got to do it. Like, and he like hounded me. And I remember when he came up with the Millionaire Recruiter, and I was like, ooh, is this going to like land well? Like, is this okay? And now I'm like super happy that I did it, because like people relate to it. Like, that's exactly, let's be $1 million billers. It's all kumbaya and be $1 million billers, It's like, because there's enough money in recruiting and staffing that no one's a competition, Yeah.
It's interesting how there's kind of these two paradigms of either fearing success or fear of failure, right? And they're both, I mean, I see the same exact things with, my relationships with my clients. It's interesting. And I can definitely relate with the fear of failure and, all of that. I think in anybody's journey, whether you're an entrepreneur, working in business, trying to reach your top version of yourself, I think it's important as you're listening to hear that you're gonna hit this stuff. It just shows up different for people in every, in different ways. I mean, this is going to be a loaded question, but I like asking these ones anyways. But how much would you say you attribute your success to mindset versus kind of like skill set and knowledge?
Ooh, interesting. So my mindset is what got my skill set.
Yeah.
So I definitely operated as I didn't give a crap. Can we
Yep.
cuss here? I don't know. That I just didn't care. I didn't care. I
Yep.
was going to do it and I was going to be the best. And so I think because I have always been a doer, not a thinker, like
Mhm.
like, and people are like, Brianna, you got to think that through. I'm like, no, not really. Because like, I'm fine with just pivoting. Like, I'm good. I love pivoting. I love change. I love all that stuff. It doesn't scare me. None of that stuff
Mhm.
scared me. So I think that's the mindset that got me my skill set, because
Right.
then I started paying attention. So because I didn't want to be like everybody else, and because I didn't get trained, so I didn't have to be, right? I trained
Right.
myself. I mean, I'm from the days of LinkedIn Recruiter didn't even exist, right? We barely even used LinkedIn. It was just job boards. And so
Mhm.
because I was the low woman on the totem pole, I wasn't able to use a job board. I didn't get job board access, but they still expected me to close just as many deals as the people that did. So I was like, what am I
Mhm.
going to do? So I taught myself how to do LinkedIn. So I think I go from like survival mode of like, I'm not going to be the one that fails. Like, it's not going to be,
Right.
like I don't do
Yep.
that. Like, I don't accept it. I don't accept the crash and burns, meaning like, I mean, of course we crash and burn sometimes, but like,
Right.
I'm not giving up. Like, that's not my thing. That's not my jam,
Right.
you know?
Yep. Totally. 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 Um, let's see. New mantra. I'm a failure. Am I doing it right, Brianna? I don't know. I think you might
No,
have missed that one, Paul.
Paul,
Um,
no, you're not doing it right.
what would be your first advice for a person starting in recruitment, but coming from HR, management, and people coaching? Where to focus on first? European markets.
Starting in recruiting, coming from, um, pay attention. Like, first of all, okay, I think that people want the fastest way to be successful in recruiting, and the only fast way to do it is not through AI, not through having people do it, buying biz dev lists. I mean, you can do all that stuff, right? Like, there's definitely
Mhm.
lots of ways that I think we can make things faster, but I think you have to put in the time. I think, like we talk about, oh, you only look at a profile for 30 seconds or less, right? 30 seconds is probably too long. But not when
Right.
you're first starting. You have to read the profiles. You have to go through them. You have to see the common denominators. You have to go on a client's website. You have to go on Crunchbase. You have to, you know what I mean? Like, you have to do those things. There is no cheat sheet, I think, you need fundamentals. I think we go back, like, I
Yep.
mean, you're a sports guy. Like, the fundamentals is what makes you strong. So you have to do
100%.
them. There's no cheat sheet there, right? Get the cheat
Yep.
sheets later. Like, how can I make this faster? Calm down, read,
Yep.
learn,
Yep.
learn how to do it.
Great advice. Great advice. Yeah, on my youth football team, we're not winning very many games is because we can't tackle and we can't block the fundamentals.
Fundamentals.
So,
Those are 2 words.
um, great question, Bianca. Thank you for being here and asking that. And Jessica, thank you for that nice comment. I'm sure Brianna is enjoying
Yeah,
that.
thanks.
One of the things that kind of helped me with my um, meditation journey, for example, is like I used a tool. It was an app called Calm.
Oh, yeah. Mhm.
Um, do you have any tools, technologies, or anything that you recommend to help with mindset or anything else we talked about other than a pen and paper and a journal?
Yeah. Actually, my Fitbit helps me. I'm a big
Okay.
Fitbit fan. They do have
Mhm.
like the different techniques of like different breathings and seeing like what works for you,
Yep.
for sure. I think that's really important. And then actually, I used BetterHelp. So BetterHelp is, you could find someone to talk to, because I think that what's really great about talking to someone. And by the way, I was very much against therapy for like my entire life. Like, you could ask my parents are very against it, which is probably why I was as
Right.
well. And then realize, wow, talking to someone that you have zero connections with, zero relationship, like, you can just go for it and you can hear their point of views, I think is really interesting. And that app is cool
Mhm.
because it really helps find that fit for you, because I definitely want to make sure, like,
Right.
as you're finding your therapist, like, find that fit for you, and you can, it's really inexpensive as far as therapy goes, and the app's really cool because it gives you like different tools and stuff like that. And then another one, shockingly, is Noom, because Noom is actually for eating, for health and stuff like that. And so, but Noom is really cool because it's the psychology around food and around health. And so I'm actually doing it with my son, who again is 9, and we read stuff every day. And it's not just about, again, it goes back to the mental strength. It's not just about food, like, but whatever controls you, whatever like moves you, and I say like a negative path, you have to get ahead of it. Right. So like I try all those different little things. And it doesn't take long. Again, it's like you get to set how long your lesson is. And I set it for 2 minutes, because 2 minutes, there's no excuses that I can't do something for 2 minutes. Right.
Right.
And so we just do it. Another great thing that I have is affirmation cards. And I'm trying to think. I have them right over here, but I don't know the name. I don't know who does them. But yeah, affirmation cards. So like once a week, we'll be around the dinner table and we'll all take, a card and we'll read it. And then we have it somewhere around a little thing for a week. And if we really like it, we keep it for 2. But so yeah, just stuff like that, little things.
Yep. Playful. Be playful.
Yeah, super playful, because it doesn't seem so heavy. When you do little things like this, it all adds up. 1% better every day, again, super feasible, like you don't want to overwhelm yourself, like you were talking about earlier, because when you overwhelm yourself, you're like, okay, I need to do this. It's like, nope. That's too much. Like, that's crazy, Like, and I always think, like, when someone, like if a friend comes to you or a colleague comes to you and they're in turmoil, what are you going to tell them? Again, start talking to yourself in that manner is really important.
All fire. All fire. I love it. This is going to be your last chance. If you have any last questions for Brianna, I'm about to wrap her up here. So if you have them, get them in here.
Don't be shy. Don't be shy.
Don't be shy. Time to expand the mindset. This is the safe place to do it. If you are listening with us, give Brianna a little claps if you can. Again, go in there and ask those questions. She's just delivered a ton of awesome stuff here, Brianna. Thank you so much. Where can everybody find you?
Yeah, LinkedIn, of course. Love LinkedIn, right? But yeah, the Millionaire Recruiter YouTube channel. I have my own podcast, Talent Takeover Unfiltered, because I like to get a little lippy. But yeah, that's the best place if you do need help. With training, thriversity.io. We are all over that in so many different aspects. Even if soft skills. Talk about soft skills a lot, which is again goes back to the mindset of things. We can help there, but that's about it.
Excellent. And if you guys just joining in towards the end, this will be on my YouTube channel. You guys can access it there, as well as the Relevant Recruiter Show on all the podcast channels. All right. For those listening who aspire to become elite recruiters, what's one piece of advice or insight you would leave them with today?
One.
Here's your golden nugget. What's the one that's going to move the needle for them?
Get comfortable being uncomfortable.
Boom.
It's time to bring it. All right. Yeah, push it.
Love it. Push it. Get outside of that comfort zone.
Get out.
Brianna, thank you so much for being here with me.
Yeah, thanks, Donnie. It's fun as always.
Thank you all that were listening with us live. We'll be back next week with another live show. You know what we should do is we should do that state of the agency recruiting industry like we did last week.
That would be a very different chat, I would imagine.
It would be a much different chat. Maybe we should do that. So I'll try to get something up here end of October, maybe November.
Yeah.
So thank you guys for being here with us live today. I'll be back next week. Brianna, thank you so much.
Thanks, Donnie.
See y'all then.
Bye.